All right, we'll call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals. Will you please stand for the pledge? Joe Machado, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you please remain standing for a moment of silence? Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher.
Here.
Joe Crowell.
Here.
Jerry Sartain.
Here.
Joe Machado.
Here.
Michael Rather. Zane Cantrell.
Present.
We do have a quorum, sir.
You have the minutes of our last meeting. Are there any changes or additions to those minutes? Do we have a motion that they be approved? Have a motion that be approved. We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. They are approved. We don't have anything left over.
No, sir.
Everything's out of the way.
No, sir.
Let me welcome each of you here today, and let me kind of explain how we will proceed with the meeting. As we have a request before us, we'll ask our staff to give us a report. Following that, those of you who have requested a BZA change, would you please come to the podium, and there may be some questions or some additional information you'd like to add to that up here. All we need is your name, and we'll, at the end of that, we'll have a public hearing for each item that we have. So if you'd like to make a statement or request to the board, you will have a chance to come forward for the public hearing. Thank you for being here. We hope that all of the decisions will be good decisions, strong decisions, as we see the law and as we establish through the county commission and the state legislature how we are to proceed. The first item of business we have is a request by Irving Harrell, who is requesting a variance relief in a detached accessory structure. And let me remind all of us, including the board members, acoustics are really bad in here, so let's all speak up very loud so we can hear one another and understand what we're talking about. Okay, you may proceed.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This first application is for Mr. Irving Harrell for a property at 1399 Craner Road. He's asking a variance to allow 1,200 square feet of additional detached accessory structure space in an R15 zoning district. This is the property on the screen before you. His property is less than an acre, so that entitles him to a maximum of 1,200 square foot of a detached accessory structure space. This site does measure about 0.75 acres in size, and the total amount of the structures that he currently has on the property is about 1,522, so he's a little over that. You can see a lot of these structures are dated and have probably pre-existed the ordinance as we have it today. The proposed accessory storage space is actually another 1,200 square feet, and let me just this is just a little further out view on Craner Road of that property. This is the actual property in question, and this is the structure that is referred to. This was actually caught by one of the building inspectors. It was being constructed without a permit, so he came up to get a permit when it was discovered that he actually exceeded the amount of detached accessory structure space that he was allowed to have. So that's why the structure hasn't been completed, and that's why he's here before you today. Just kind of going through the rest of the photos there of the surrounding area. And this is kind of just a schematic showing the location of the subject structure based on the location of his house. You do have staff's comments before you, and you also have seen our recommendation on this. We have heard from the county commissioner in this district, and he didn't have any concerns about this particular application, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Okay. Question, Joe?
It appears that it might be across the line. Now, something to remember with our GIS system, it's a very good system, but it's not meant to be survey accurate. So, you know, there is some allowance for that. It may be, it may not be. If you ever had a mortgage survey or some sort of survey done, it turned out that that structure was indeed over the line, then he would have some issues. But by looking at this, there's a chance that it is, but this is not survey accurate. So.
All of these that we have are not survey accurate. These are guesstimates that we have. So we do have some restrictions on about how far they would be or how close they would be to a setback. Mm-hmm. So does that answer your question?
That's not the building he's
No, it's actually
the big long one there.
Right, and this is probably, I think that's an older building. It looks like what he's building is of newer construction. It looks like that may have been removed and he was replacing it with something else. Is what it looks like. Yeah.
Jerry?
All I want to ask is if Doug could move over a little bit and get just a little closer to the microphone.
I can certainly do that. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Is anyone here representing this request? Would you come forward, please? If you'll come to the podium, give us your name and any additional information you'd like to share.
My name is Dawn Stanley, and I live at 1399 Craner Road. Sorry.
Speak up real loud. Use your heavy voice.
My
Like
name is
the
Dawn
kids,
Stanley.
You're trying to get a hold of your kids.
I live at 1399 Craner Road, and we desperately need another building to put storage in. We tore the old one down. It's been gone. Everything that was there got moved into the house and onto the porch. The Bobcat needs a place to go. You know, it's a big machine. We need this building for storage. I can have
Have
my
any
middle
questions?
bedroom back.
Any questions from the board? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. We'll close the public hearing. We have a motion on it.
Move be approved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion to be approved. All of these, when they are approved, are with the restrictions that are set forth in this document. Do I have a second on it? Second. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Thane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Okay, the next request, and let me make a point here to our audience. We have Surefire Fireworks, and we have several fireworks that are we're considering, and most of these have been approved for the past 2 or 3 years. We don't know of any problems we've had with them, but we're going to go ahead and do these fireworks and kind of get them out of the way. But we will have a public hearing on each one of them as they come up, for those of you who might have a question about any of those fireworks. Does everybody understand that? We're going to get those out of the way. We have several here today. Now, the first one we have is temporary fireworks stand.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This first one is for Surefire Fireworks. This is for a piece of property located along Highway 99. This aerial photo was taken prior to the development of the property, but you'll recognize this as the Dollar General located out on Highway 99. This application has been approved over the last 3 fireworks seasons, 2008, 2009, and 2010. The applicant's looking to put up a 30-foot by 50-foot tent Their hours of operation will be from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week, 2 employees on site. Just to kind of give you this looks to show you the area that we're talking about here. Of course, there's again the Dollar General and the accessory stores with it. This is kind of looking to the side of the building, so be I guess to the west, southwest. That's basically where they'll be setting up the tent in that gravel area right through there. You see that there is some detention on this property as well. The tent will not be that far back, so it won't be getting into any of that. This is across the street on the property. This is kind of a schematic just to show you the tent location, again, next to the concrete parking area. Again, that, Mr. Chairman, do you just want me to go through all the different sites, or do you want to go ahead and have?
No, we'll have a public
Okay,
hearing
very
on
good.
each one. Then
Okay,
we'll
very
go to the next
Okay,
firework.
very good. That's all I have. I'll be happy to answer
Okay.
any questions.
Do we have someone here from some Surefire Fireworks representing this? Okay. Do not. We'll open this for a public hearing. Anyone like to speak on this request? Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machado,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, it is approved. The next item is the TNT fireworks, and this is located on Epps Mill Road.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you'll just bear with me for just a minute, the computer's trying to catch up with what I'm doing here. And let's see here. There we go. Okay, the TNT fireworks, this is for a piece of property located at 6137 Epps Mill Road. Again, this is another application that we have seen in the past, most recently last year, but also 2 seasons before that, and even before that, we've seen this as well. You'll recognize this as the Love's Travel Stop out there off of Epps Mill Road, off the interstate exit there, the Buchanan exit. Essentially, they're looking to do, again, a 30 by 50 foot tent on the property. Their hours of operation will be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. They are proposing to put up a number of business signs, and this is kind of a blanket statement for all of them, including the last one. They are allowed to have a certain amount of square footage for temporary signage, so any approval will have to be consistent with our zoning regulations regarding temporary signage. But this, again, is a site that we've seen in the past. Also, they are requesting the temporary variance with this application to put the tent just a little bit closer to the front setback of Epps Mill Road, which they have done in the past and has been approved by the board. But this kind of gives you just an idea of what we're looking at. This is the area here where the tent will be located. Again, you can kind of see just the area in general. Again, there's the Love Travel Stop with the McDonald's attached. And this is the site plan. It's also in your agenda materials, kind of shows you their proximity to both Forbes Drive and also Epps Mill Road. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Have any questions from the board on this? We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion on it?
I make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to be
Second.
approved. Have a second. Call roll, please.
Who was that second? Keith Bratcher? Yes. Joe Crowell?
Yes.
Joe Machado?
Yes.
Jerry Sartain?
Yes.
Zane Cantrell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. The next item is a request by Jake Lloyd, and this is at the Lebanon Pike. This is fireworks. Now, let me also point out, all of these are temporary tents that they go up. You see at the 4th of July and times like that. It's limited on how long these will be there to begin with. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This next request is for a piece of property located at 5830 Lebanon Pike. The current zoning is C2. It's about 2.4 acres in size. Again, we're looking at another temporary fireworks stand. This particular application was approved for the first time by the board last year. You'll also recognize this as a site that was also approved for a landscaping business on the property as well. You can see it's fairly wide open and graveled, pretty heavily graveled. The property, this is looking across the street from the property, looking down toward Murfreesboro on that. This is looking onto the property. You can see the landscaping materials and some of the trucks in the background. This is looking back up north. This is, you can almost see the traffic light in the background there. That's actually the Jefferson Pike intersection. And again, looking back down the road toward Murfreesboro. And that's again looking back up toward Jefferson Pike. The property, they're looking to put up a 60 by 30 foot tent. The proposed hours of operation would be 8:30 to 10 p.m., 8:30 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. They're also asking for approval to stay open until midnight on July 4th, which is fairly typical. Again, the signage issue is the same here. They need to abide by the signage requirements for the zoning resolution. There may be up to 6 employees during their busier hours. However, they state that most of the time there will only be one full-time. It says the applicant states that one person along with needed help would be on site and operate the proposed stand for the duration of the fireworks sale. So again, this is similar to what was approved back in 2010. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on this site? We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this site. Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
If I may, before the motion, I apologize. One thing with this particular site, we just would want to ensure that and this really goes for all tents, but to ensure that since it's fairly wide open out there, we want to make sure that the tent is not too close to the right-of-way. It needs to stay back at least 40 feet. So with that,
That's a good idea for all of them. Accept a motion.
Make a motion be approved.
Have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second? Got a second. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher. Yes. Joe Crowell. Yes. Joe Machado.
Yes.
Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
It is approved. The next item is also by Jake Lloyd, who is requesting a temporary sale of fireworks on the Shelbyville Highway.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this piece of property is located on Shelbyville Pike, 3960. The zoning of the property is C2, and the request is for a conditional use permit to allow the temporary sale of fireworks. This is also another tent that was approved for the first time last year. Really, it's the same applicant as we discussed with the last application over on Lebanon Road. Really, everything about this is the same as far as the hours of operation, the number of days that they'd be open, the time frame they'd be open, the signage, and everything else. Everything else is pretty much identical with this, so I won't go into any more details about that, except to say that there's also some concern on this one with just ensuring that the parking is not in the right-of-way of Shelbyville Pike. There's pretty wide berm out through there going on Shelbyville Pike going to the south. We just want to make sure that nobody's parking on the side of the road there, that they actually park on site, and that the tent is located far enough back from the front property line. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions on this site? We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. This is the Shelbyville Highway. Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion that be approved. Thank you for speaking up.
I second it.
Got a second. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher.
Yes.
Joe Crowell.
Yes.
Joe Machado.
Yes.
Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Is approved. Now we have two from Absolute Fireworks. The first one being on the Old Nashville Highway.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This piece of property, again, is located on the Old Nashville Highway. This is the property right here at the corner of Old Nashville Highway and Baker Road. This particular site has also been approved for the last 3 years, 2008 through 2010. The applicant's looking to place a 30 by 60 foot tent on the corner of the property. They would have hours of operation 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week on July 4th, again asking for the extended hours through midnight. Again, all signage would have to be consistent with the zoning resolution. There would be 3 employees on this property, and again, this is identical to what they've requested in the past. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, just to give you an idea, and I apologize I neglected to do this on the last application.
Any questions on this site?
Here's the aerial shots and the ground shots that we took of the property.
open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this site. Close the public hearing. We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell. Yes. Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
For those in the audience, one of the things that we look at in the preliminary look at all of these fireworks is to make sure there have not been any problems over the past years. And if they are, then we need to make some changes to make sure it doesn't happen again. So we do look at these very closely before they ever come to us. Also from Absolute Fireworks, again, this would be on the Shelbyville Highway.
Yes,
A lot
sir.
of competition out there, right?
Yeah, we've got several this year. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this piece of property is on the Shelbyville Highway 5855. Most commissioner or board members will recognize this as the market down there on Shelbyville Pike. I believe it's CE Market down there on Shelbyville Pike, right there at the corner of Ellis Drive. This application, again, has been approved the last 3 years, 08 through 010. And really it's the same applicant that we just looked at the last application as far as the hours of operation, the days per week, and everything, and the number of employees. It's identical to the application we just considered just a couple moments ago. So with that, I'll just kind of, unless there's any questions, I'll just run through the ground shots here that we have of the property.
Any question from the board on this site? We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on it. Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
Move to be approved, Mr.
Have a
Chairman.
motion to be approved. Have a second.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell. Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Okay, the next one is also Absolute Fireworks, and this is located on the Las Casas Pike.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And again, just bear with me here as the computer catches up. This is the final firework tent request that we have for this particular agenda. This is for Absolute Fireworks. This is actually a new site. This one has not been approved in the past by the board. This is the Dollar General site located on Las Casas Pike. This site was just built within the last couple of years. Essentially, the request is similar to the last two we just looked at. They'd like to do a 30 by 60 foot tent on the property. Hours of operation would be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week from June 20th to July 5th. They are asking for extended hours on July 4th through midnight. Again, signage would have to be consistent with our zoning regulations. There would be 3 employees on the site, and I just realized hold on just a second, I'm reading off the wrong one here. But everything's the same, even though I just realized I forgot to turn the page, but everything that I just told you is accurate. So with that, I will say that we did receive some phone calls about this, some concerns. Also, the commissioner in the district had left me a message saying he had some concerns about this particular site as well. You can see this is the existing Dollar General that's out there with the accessory space that they have there where the hair salon's located. You can see it's directly next to the Las Casas Market. It's directly across the street. And there's the location of the proposed tent, which, again, as long as it meets setbacks, the 40-foot setback, we'd be fine with that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. Again, this is the first time that you've considered this site for a fireworks tent.
Any questions from the board? We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. We have a motion on it.
I make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We have a second. Got a second. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell. Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Okay. Thank you for bearing with us on all of these fireworks stands. They come up this time of the year, and we've gotten them out of the way, so we'll get back to our normal agenda. The next item we have is a request by Randall Spencer, who is requesting a conditional use permit, and this is to establish an accessory dwelling.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is a piece of property located at 3405 Vestry Avenue. Here's an aerial shot of the property in question. As you stated, the applicant is seeking a conditional use permit in order to establish an accessory dwelling unit on the property. Since the property is less than 1 unit and 1 acre in size, those are required to receive conditional use permit approval by the board. There is a single-family home, an existing detached structure, including a storage shed, which you can see on the aerial, and there's a shot a little later which will show you exactly where he's wanting to put the structure. It will be a detached structure. He's wanting to remove the existing shed and place the living unit in its place. The applicant has submitted his responses to the standards of general applicability. We overhauled our standards for accessory dwelling units within the last couple of years, and we do have a number of standards that they have to adhere to now. So any approval, of course, you would have to adhere to those specific standards as far as size and everything. This does, I will say, it will meet the size requirements for detached accessory structures. With under an acre, he's limited to 1,200 square feet, but this would fall within that. Just to give you an idea of the surrounding area, you can kind of see his house and then the structure in the background there, kind of to the right of the truck. That's what would be removed and where the accessory unit would be placed. And I believe I understand it's for a family member is who this is for. And I believe the applicant's getting ready to come up here and speak, and I know he can elaborate more on that. But we'll just go through the rest of these photos here. We have received a number of phone calls about this, and I also believe that there are some, we made copies of several of the emails or faxes that we received about this in the packet that you have before you. I believe there's some in there for that as well. So if you have any questions about this particular application, I'll be more than happy to answer them. The schematic on the screen right now shows you where the existing shed will be removed and the location of the new structure. Of course, that structure will have to meet setback requirements and everything for detached accessory structures. Again,
Any questions from the board?
I just have a few for the applicant, Mr. Chairman. If you'll come on, Mr. Spencer, I just have a few questions for him, things I want to clarify.
Yeah, I'm going to let him come. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
Not for Doug, not this time.
Okay. Are you representing? Come forward and give us your name.
My name is Randall Spencer. I live at 3405 Vestry Avenue, and I was wanting to build the mother-in-law suite.
Mr. Spencer, you can raise that up if you need to.
Thanks.
There's no sense in bending over if you don't have to.
Okay.
Any questions?
Mr. Spencer, I just had a couple of questions, just some clarification. The structure that you're going to build, it's going to be the outside's going to be brick to match your home.
Yes.
Okay, and this is going to be like it's going to be like a mother for your mother-in-law.
Yes.
That's great. And I guess a lot of times when we have these come up for some concerns of the neighbors, when your mother-in-law does not continue to reside there, you don't plan on making this a piece of rental property.
No.
Okay.
Be my little man cave.
And usually when we approve these, we usually put that restriction in there so that, a lot of times in a neighborhood like this, you live in a very nice neighborhood, so some of the concerns for the neighbors, if that family member no longer resides there, that this could not become a piece of rental property.
No.
All right, so thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing. For anyone who'd like to speak on this request, would you please come around to the podium, give us your name and any additional information.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Bill Hunter. I'm the chaplain of the Smyrna Police Department, and I live directly across the street. I live in the house right at the top there. I'm at the corner of Vestry and Chapel Hills, on the opposite corner from the subject property. I'm kind of the sounding board for the people in the community. We're not a PUD, but whenever something comes up, I'm the one that gets the calls and the visits and so forth. 15 property owners have contacted me about this, and as this gentleman here a few moments ago was questioning the homeowner, the biggest concern that we had was what's going to happen to this second living unit on this lot. We bought our property, most of these people bought their properties, including me, a long, long time ago. We bought them when, everything was single family. Big lots, quiet neighborhood, peaceable neighborhood, and we're concerned about multifamily. I think if there could be some type of restriction that would prohibit this second living unit from ever being used as a rental property and turning our community into a multifamily community, it might be more acceptable. I want to commend Mr. Stevens and his wife for the desire to care for their mother. I was a caregiver for my mother till she was 94. She had Alzheimer's, and I was the only person on the face of this earth that she knew. And I know that it's a tremendous need for care for our parents and those who are older. But we don't want to do this at the detriment of others in the neighborhood. We were concerned about the property becoming multifamily and possibly those of us who have had some rental property in the past, we know that there can be problems with renters. And I just wish them the best, but we just really feel like that it would be more acceptable to us if this unit was attached to the existing dwelling, if they built a bedroom and a bathroom on the back of this house and made it all a part of one house and allowed the mother or mother-in-law to live in the house rather than a separate, detached second home on a lot that's less than an acre. We feel like that it would make more sense. But we wish them the best, and may God bless them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a
just a
question.
minute.
I just have a question for
We may
the
have a
neighbor.
question here.
I just have a question addressed to you. When the applicant, Mr. Spencer, was up here, I alluded to about asking him if this would become, when his mother-in-law no longer resides there, being rental property. And we have addressed this in the past, and we always make sure when we do this that we ask the applicant about that. So if we put that restriction in there that this could not become rental property after she no longer resides there, you would have no objection to it then?
My personal objection would not be there. If we can some way or another get this, reserved strictly for her and her alone, fine with me.
All right, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone else like to speak on this? All right, we'll close the public hearing. We'll have a motion on it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to be approved.
Have a motion to be approved.
Yes, and just with the restriction that if the mother-in-law no longer resides there, it just can't become can't be a rented unit.
Did you get that? Do we have a second to it?
I second it.
Got a second.
Am I understanding this, the mother-in-law only lives in an apartment?
That's his motion.
Just his mother? No one else?
That's his motion. Any other question? That's what you're voting on. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes,
Motion carries, sir.
it is approved with the restrictions. The next item we have is a request by James Parker, who is requesting variance relief for additional detached accessory structure.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is for a piece of property located at 4685 East Compton Road. You see the aerial of the property on the screen. The applicant is seeking a variance to the maximum square footage limits established in our zoning resolution. He has over 5 acres of property, actually has over 15, so he's actually entitled to 2,500 square feet of accessory storage area. The subject site, again, is over 15 acres in size, and without the structure that he's asking for the variance for, he actually only had 1,940 square feet in area. However, the proposed structure that is constructed on the property, it was another of those situations where it was constructed, didn't realize it needed a building permit, and it's there, so he's asking for the variance to those provisions now. But it's just a little bit over that, what he's allowed by about 520 square feet. So this is, again, just a closer shot of the property. This is the existing house on the property, and you see he's got a number of it's not just one big structure that he has on the property. He has several smaller structures that really just kind of, after they add them all up, just to kind of get them over just a little bit. But again, on the property here, some of the structures he has. This is actually right here in the foreground there. That's the structure in question that was constructed without the building permit. And again, that's the approximate location of that structure. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Doug, have you had any calls?
I don't believe I've received any particular calls about this application. I don't have anything down. Ms. Bradford, did you have any calls about this? No, sir.
Thank you.
This is for additional storage,
That's correct.
personal storage.
That's correct.
Okay. Do we have
Personal
anyone
storage.
here representing this request? If you'll come around, please.
Yes, my name is James Parker. I live at 4685 East Compton Road, and I didn't know anything about how many square footage of buildings I was allowed or anything until I got informed about it. So that's the reason I stood where I'm at, and I just like to have good, nice buildings on my place to secure everything, where to look better and be safer, and that's the reason I'm asking for this request to get this building put on my property. Approve it.
Any questions?
Yes.
You didn't know you were supposed to have a building permit?
No, I didn't come and ask the proper people, but I had several different people tell me if it was going to be an equipment building, you didn't have to have a permit, so that's the reason I went ahead and built it, and out of ignorance instead of asking the proper people about it.
Are you going to get rid of some of those smaller buildings you have, or are you going to maintain, keep those?
I want to keep them if I can.
Keep them. Thank you.
I just got something to clarify. So in other words, Mr. Parker, you were thinking this is going to be used for agricultural, so you didn't have to have a permit?
Yes.
I understand. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion on it?
I'll make a motion be approved.
Have a motion to be approved.
Second it.
Have a second. Jerry. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machado,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Thane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Okay, it is approved. The next item we have is a request by Kristen Henderson, who is requesting a conditional use permit for a hair salon. And this is a major home business. And would you explain for all of us the major home business term that you have in there, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to. Just so everybody understands, we, within the last 3 years, we actually overhauled, quite frankly, our home-based business standards. Before we had one system, we switched the system we're under now. We break them into what are called minor home-based businesses and major home-based businesses. Minor home-based businesses are essentially those that really, unless somebody told you that they were on the property and doing a business there, you wouldn't know about them. A lot of people who maybe use phone call, internet, those kind of things. Those are what we consider minor home-based business. They have to still meet standards, but they're allowed by right, provided that it can meet certain standards. And those standards include things like the number of employees who may work there, the number of trips that they may generate, those kind of things. Major home-based businesses are the next level up, and really the criteria for them is fairly similar to what you see for minor home-based businesses, except we allow a little more activity. For instance, for a minor home-based business, you're only allowed to have one non-resident employee that can come and work at the business, whereas in a major, we would allow up to 3. Doesn't mean you have to have that many, but it just does make that allowance. Also, the number of trips that are permitted per day, I believe, goes from 5 for a minor to up to 10 for a major home-based business. So when we say major, we're not thinking of it in a term as far as just a large change in intensity. It's just those kind of businesses are probably a little more noticeable by the neighbors, the major home-based businesses, and we feel that those require a little bit more scrutiny and are brought before the Board of Zoning Appeals as opposed to being by right. So I'll be, if anybody has any questions about that as we go through this, I'll be more than happy to discuss them. But both this application and the next one we'll be discussing do concern major home-based businesses. So with that, this first home-based business we'll be looking at is for a piece of property on Galileo Drive, 819 Galileo Drive, for Miss Kristen Henderson. This is the property in question. Now, there is a house there now. When this aerial shot was taken, the house had not yet been constructed, but there is a house there now. She is asking to do a hair salon as a major home-based business. She would be open 2 days a week, Tuesday and Thursday, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and 2 Saturdays per month. She would not have any additional employees, nor would there be any business vehicles located at the house. Basically, she plans to see one client at a time, and client visits are not expected to exceed 8 to 10 people on the days where she is open. Our zoning ordinance does allow for a very minor amount of signage for major home-based businesses. It's 5 square feet, and it has to be attached to the principal unit or the accessory structure if it's within one. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have one. It just means that that option is available. This business will be completely within the house. She's not proposing any new structures here for this. Some of the concerns that staff had with this, we had some concerns about, since it's on a septic tank, we had some concerns about if the tank could handle the additional usage, if you will, with the business. She has spoken with our groundwater department. It's located in our building. Essentially what they said is they don't think it's going to be a problem, but did recommend that if she does get this, to go ahead and add a couple more field line areas, and I believe she does have a permit to do that should she get approved for this. With that, we did receive a number of phone calls about this particular application, some just general information, but some were opposed. I believe that there are some concerns as well from the Homeowners Association. Just so you all are aware, as I know you are, but I'll reiterate, our office in the Rutherford County government does not, we don't enforce restrictive covenants, nor can we take those into account in our deliberations, but I just wanted to let you know that those concerns have been made to our office. So with that, let me just kind of run through the ground shots that we have here. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions from the board? Do we have anyone here representing this request? Would you come around, please? Go ahead. Give us your name.
My name is Britt Henderson. My wife is the one that's wanting to open the business. We're applying, as they were just saying, we are applying for the home-based business, a major business, for a hair salon in our home. Again, we will not have any employees. We're trying to do this strictly just 2 days a week with the option of having a few Saturdays a month. We do not expect to exceed 8 to 10 clients a day, and there's no modification to the structure itself. I understand the HOA does have issues. I understand their concerns. And however, prior to construction, I spoke with the president of the HOA, and I explained to him what we were intending to open a hair salon in our house, and he informed us that it was, he indicated the HOA would not have a problem with it. Since that time, the president has changed hands. We now have a different president of the HOA. My wife has worked in a salon for many years, and she quit when we had our first child, or when we had our only child, which was 2 years ago. So we took the opportunity when we built a new home to include the salon into it, so it was something that was a part of the house. It would not be an eyesore to the community or to the neighborhood or anything else, and it would give her the opportunity to work at home part-time and still spend time and take care of our daughter. So.
You do understand, if this board approves it and there are restrictive covenants in your subdivision, that's a separate issue.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions?
Clarification questions, Mr. Chairman. So if she sees clients, they're going to be on an appointment basis only, so there'll be one person, not going to be a lot of cars parked in the road, and you understand they got to be
correct
in your driveway, so they'll be a by appointment only?
Yes.
Okay. And you're requesting Tuesdays and Thursdays through the
Yes.
week and 2 Saturdays a month?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and operation 8 to 5?
Yes, 8 to 5 or 9 to 5.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Jerry?
If it matters to your neighbors, could you do without the sign?
Absolutely. The only issue that we have is we've been told that the barber board requires a small sign, but we've tried to look through their covenants and can't find anything that it requires it. So we would prefer not to have one, if at all possible. We would like for no one to know that this exists.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Joe? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing. For anyone who'd like to speak on it, would you come around?
My name is Brian Hamilton. I live at 1227 Paramount Drive in Rockvale Meadows. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association. I spoke with the past president, and I think there was some misunderstanding on his part about what was going to take place at Henderson's home, and there was no written record of the conversation, and I wasn't present, so I'm not sure exactly what all took place in that conversation. The restrictions and covenants do say that no lot can be used for anything other than residential purposes. I understand that you all don't recognize that. I also know that I'm assuming that those restrictions and covenants went through the county when the developer built the subdivision. There's about 140 some odd homes in that subdivision right now. And there's also a clause that restricts any commercial signage. I think Brett said that they would have to have, or there was a requirement by the barber board. So while I think the
deliberation of this board would have no bearing whatsoever on your restrictive covenants that you all would have. That's a separate issue.
Right. Okay. So my concern is, and I spoke with Brett last night, and I think they're trying to do everything they can to make this rather benign to the neighborhood. My concern is the precedence that is set, and we begin having other home-based businesses that could be, I guess, more noxious than what they're proposing. So those are my concerns, and I'm here to represent the other 139 homeowners in the neighborhood.
Any questions? Thank you. We appreciate it. Anyone else want to speak on this issue? Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion on it?
Mr. Chairman, before we get, if I could address a couple of comments that the gentleman just made, and I understand his concern about this setting a precedent, but I want to make sure the board members and those in the audience who may be watching are aware that every application that the board considers is judged on its own merits. If another business came that met the criteria for major home-based businesses and is brought before the board, just because this one, if this one's approved, just because this one is approved, doesn't mean you're automatically locked in to approve any other one that comes in. I just want to make sure that that everybody is aware of that, because there are some businesses that, quite frankly, when you look in our zoning resolution, that we just outright prohibit as home-based businesses. They just have no place in the neighborhood. This is the big reason why this particular type of business, the hair salon, we just feel that because of the nature of the business, we feel it needs a little more scrutiny, which is why it's required to be a major home base as opposed to a minor. But just so everybody understands that any other application that comes through here is judged on its own merits, not just because you approve this one, that means you have to approve any other one that comes along.
Does everyone understand that? the beauty of things that come in before the BZA is that each request must stand up on its own merits. And it doesn't mean if you've approved it here one day, one time, that you're set a precedent that you have to approve another one. So that's one of the things that we like about that, as opposed to a rezoning or a zoning change. You're not changing any zoning whatsoever. It remains the same. You're not affecting any restrictive covenants that you might have out there in your subdivision.
Mr. Chairman, I have
Yes,
a
sir.
question for you. In other words, if I made a motion to approve this and we approved it, it would still be up to their organization to stop it. It would not have anything to do with us whatsoever.
I'm sorry. I believe that is correct, Mr. Crowell. Mr. Santel may want to chime in on that, just from a legal standpoint, but that's my understanding as well.
Does that answer your question?
That answers my question.
Okay. Get a legal opinion on that.
Did you hear the question, Tony?
The question I had is this: if we approve this tonight, the homeowners organization still has a right to stop it. Am I right or wrong?
That's correct. It would be up to the homeowners association to take any action to prohibit it. Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Our legal spoken. Anyone else wants to speak on this request? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
Okay, I'll have a motion that be approved.
Discussion?
Have a second.
No, discussion.
Jerry.
Discussion.
Discussion. All right, go ahead.
I would second it if we make the...
You're going to second it so we can discuss it.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead then.
I'd like to add that it not have the sign.
How about that?
Okay. Along with the motion, they cannot have a sign.
Let me, if I could interject something in there. And it's not that I have a problem with that, but my concern is that if we have one controlling body with the barber and beauty salon standards at the state, if they're requiring some sort of a sign, but you're not letting them have a sign, there's a kind of a friction point right there. That there may be a way, again, to do it that it's not even noticeable from any of the neighbors. The zoning resolution does allow for a 5 square foot sign attached to the house, which is not very big sign. But if it's an absolute requirement and there's no way for them to get any kind of a variance from the state board that handles barbers and beauty salons, that's kind of putting them in an awkward position of doing that. But I just throw that out there for you can make the motion you'd like to make, but I'm just throwing it out there for consideration.
Does that make any difference in your...
Well, I know that in the past, we've had them where they can put it on the door or something. It doesn't have to be 5 square foot.
That's correct. That's just a maximum. It could be, if they could get by with a 1 square foot little sign that you couldn't even see from the road, then that would meet the intent.
I
of
think
what
they understand the intent. Why don't we just do the motion and then let them work out the details of that sign? It's not going to be a great large sign.
Right, and this is a sign. It's not a sign that can be lit or anything like that. That's not anything that the neighbors will ever have to worry about. No lit. It's not allowed to be a lit sign, so it shouldn't be noticeable no matter how small it is, really, or how big it is.
That works for me.
Okay. All right. We have a motion.
Well, I guess I want a clarification what the motion is now.
I make a motion to approve with a 1 foot sign in the window only.
Okay. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second. Call roll, please.
I just want to make sure, but our zoning allows them to have a 5 square foot sign, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
The next item we have is a request by Terry and Linda Greer, they are requesting a conditional use permit to establish a promotional products company, and this is a home-based business.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is a piece of property located, at 3725 Leanna Road. You see the aerial on the screen before you of the property. The applicants are seeking a conditional use permit approval for the establishment of this major home-based business, as you stated, for promotional products. The proposed activities with the home-based business would involve processing orders, shipment of orders, storage of some product, which could include things like printed materials, apparel, ink pens, balloons. Essentially, the business that they operate is they, any kind of a personalized, like a pen or T-shirts, anything like that. Like sometimes you may go into the doctor's office, something they may have pens there with the name or their logo or something on it. They engage in that type of business. They don't actually do the printing at the house. They're really just kind of the help with the distribution. There is some storage of product there, but only storage. And there's going to be a small office as well in one of the accessory structures, which we'll see here in just a minute. But there will be no outside storage. All activities with the proposed business would take place within the existing detached accessory structures on the property. In addition to the applicants, their daughter and an administrative employee would work from this location. Their proposed business does act as a brokerage for printing factories and businesses. Again, it's not open to the public. It's not a storefront. You won't be having people come over just to look at their products or anything like that from a retail standpoint. And they would be open from Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Again, it's just a wider shot. This is the location. This is the house from the front of the property. Looking down Leanna Road back toward Thompson Lane, and that's looking to the north. And I may have that backwards, I'm sorry. Looking across the street. That's actually looking to the north, I apologize. This is inside one of the accessory structures that we're talking about. That is the existing accessory structure, one of them. This is really the place where they'd be doing most of the work for the business inside this particular structure. This is just showing another structure on the property. These are all existing structures. Again, they're not proposing to construct anything new on the property. Really, the one thing that they will have are probably deliveries or pickups to and from the property, UPS, something like that. No 18-wheelers or anything like that. And as they told us, that's probably on a daily basis. Maybe just one a day, I believe, is what they had represented to us. But but we did receive a few phone calls about this particular application. I had marked down for one. I don't know how many, Mrs. Bradford, you may have had. Did you have any on that one? Okay. But not necessarily, as I recall, not necessarily in opposition, just really asking for general information about what they were wanting to do there. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have anyone here representing this request? You'll come around, please.
I'm Terry Greer. Me and my wife operate the business. We've been doing it for about 10 or 12 years now. And what the main reason we're doing this is the cost of renting a property that we no longer need. We don't encourage people dropping in. We don't want to sign. And to buy the property and to move the business there will help us continue our business because of the high cost of rental property. And that's one of the main reasons to do it, and just for our lifestyle.
Any questions? Joe?
You will have UPS trucks coming in and delivering, would be small trucks. Is there room for them to turn around in where the building is back in the back?
Yes, there's a circular drive, so they'll come in the morning and drop off and pick up in the afternoon.
Yeah, the picture on the screen now kind of, I'm sorry, I was just saying the photo we have on the screen kind of shows part of their backyard area where that turnaround is. And these are, as I understand, these structures are kind of on opposite sides from each other. This one and then this particular one here.
That's correct.
Okay.
If you had to estimate how many traffic count would be in and out of your place a day?
3 or 4.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request.
Chairman Cantrell, Mr. Bossy, members of the board, my name is Carl David Summer. I live at 3669 Leanna Road, 2 doors down. Some of my questions have been answered to some degree. The accessory structures that you speak of, Mr. Greer will be, I believe, the third owner of this property. The first owner there built a horse barn. He enjoyed horses, had a calf or two, and then he moved to a bigger place. So I think one of your pictures pretty well defined horse stalls in the building. I don't know if that's where they're going to put the products or not, but it was a horse barn. My concern, I have lived, come December the 1st, I believe it would be 32 years on this corner. It's gone from being rural to being a major cut-through to I-840. Our traffic has tremendously increased. Also, high school students going to Siegel High School that live north of here come down Lebanon Road, cut across Cherry Lane to keep from having to go through 2 school zones to get to Siegel. So try to get out the end of Leanna Road at 7:45 in the morning. You might want to try it again late afternoon. A lot of people cut through going to 840. Our traffic has increased to the point we no longer have walkers because it's not safe to walk. There's no shoulder on Leanna Road. If you want evidence of that, come out to my house and you walk across the road. When the city purchased that property over there, I told them they'd want to set that fence way back because when it was a farm that belonged to the Jordan family, they couldn't keep a fence up there because if you drop a wheel off, you're gone. There's no recovery. I've had 2 or 3 of those people end up through my front yard. I was concerned about the amount of traffic, the size of the traffic, because there sure wouldn't be any place that they could turn around in the highway. And I posted signs in front of my house that says, "Don't cut through my circle driveway, it's not a public road." Because when my grandkids are out in the yard, and this has happened, that they come buzzing through my driveway, and the grandkids in the yard playing, and that doesn't go over real well at all, I guarantee you. So my concerns were, what is the product? How will it be delivered? Because it was stated a minute ago that it would be deliveries and pickups. So that's two trips. Are these big trucks? And apparently, from what was just said, they're not big trucks. If it's something the size of a UPS truck, there's probably turnaround room there. I don't know, but those are the concerns. The area is building up. There's a couple of new subdivisions within a quarter mile of us right now. Of course, the property across the road on an angle from their property, but directly in front of me is property that belongs to the city of Murfreesboro that's used for their irrigation of their wastewater, and that will never be built on. I don't know that this is a commercial type neighborhood. It's changing from a rural complexion, and those are concerns that concern me because that road's awfully narrow. We don't need any more traffic. And every time y'all meet, you hear that, and especially the regular planning commission. That's the old faithful, isn't it, Mr. DeMasi? You got more traffic is what everybody hollers about. But you can come out there and stand and watch. And that's my concern is the amount of traffic and what it's going to be and the regularity of it. Thank you.
Well, let me also say this to you. I'm very much concerned and aware of the traffic problem, not only out there, but throughout this entire county. All you got to do is try to get up on Thompson Lane. You wait 10 minutes sometime just to get out of your driveway. Somebody, I think, and this is a whole different issue, but someone who has some authority on our streets, we're way behind. We need to do something about bypasses around some of our communities. We're not doing a good job of that. But I don't know that this board can solve those problems. Whether this is approved or not, we're still going to have some terrible traffic problems throughout this city until someone takes some responsibility establish some bypasses. It's just no way to get around that. And it is, if there's a terrible traffic problem, it is the responsibility of the road board to make sure that they do everything that they possibly can to make this traffic a little bit easier. So that's where we are, at that other thing. So we are sensitive to your concerns. Anyone else?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I just have one question of Mr. Summer. With what you had heard from Mr. Greer and the concerns you had, are you satisfied with what, you said you had concerns with the amount of traffic and what the product was. So the response you got from him, are you satisfied with the concerns you had with that?
What were the number of trips a day?
Well, he said 3 to 4. He said there would be a UPS truck that would pick up and drop off in the afternoon, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and I guess whatever trips, a couple of more for him and I guess whoever's there. But he just said 3 to 4.
I would let me say it two ways. When I had my circle driveway that I mentioned a moment ago, the concrete men stopped work that morning until the school zone was clear because they said you get killed out here. They were scared to stand out there because they were working close to the road, and they literally quit work until the high school traffic was gone. If it's 3 or 4 single axle ups type trucks, ups do come in 18-wheelers is the reason I clarify that. I don't think we have room for 18-wheelers on that road. Most of our bicyclists have left, our walkers have left. Still some bicyclists that come through there, so we don't need any large trucks coming through there to make that any worse. Long-range plan, it may change, that may be, by the time that ever happens, I may not be there to care. But, there are some long-range plans that go further than that. If it's 3 or 4 trucks the size of a single axle ups truck, I probably wouldn't have a trouble with that. But I do think, here's one other thing I'd like to add to it. I think the timing on this was handled totally backwards. I think a little PR could have been done that would have made it, I wouldn't even be standing here. Soul sign went up in the yard one day, and I don't know what day your sign went up or the commission sign went up, but a neighbor called it to my attention, and it couldn't have been more than 2 days after the soul sign went up. Neighborhood rumor has it that some of the shelving is already being constructed. To me, that's a little bit getting the cart before the horse, or it's kind of like they're going to cram it down your throat, and I don't like that. Somebody come to me and said, this is what I'd like to do, and explain it to me, I probably wouldn't be standing here today.
Thank you. Anyone else? We'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion that say that again, it be approved? Yes, sir. Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a second. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machado,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Good luck to all of you out there. Traffic's not going to get any better. The next item we have is a request by Spencer Sellers, who is requesting a variance relief, and this is for a front yard setback.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this is for a front setback variance request. The piece of property is located at 4527 Lee Road. It's about not quite an acre and a half in size. This is the property in question. The applicant is seeking a variance in order to construct a single-family dwelling. The location of the proposed single-family home was determined by the fact that the majority of the site is located within a flood zone with a large portion of the lot located in the floodway. He did obtain a building permit in October of last year for a single-family dwelling measuring about 485 square feet in area, so it's going to be a fairly small residential unit. Upon inspection of the footer, the building inspector noticed that the encroachment was within the required setback, and so the building department sent a letter to the applicant alerting them to stop work until he provided information to the codes department and the planning, as well as obtaining or applying for this variance request. With that, let me just show you the area that we have. The blue area is actually all that area within the 100-year floodplain. There's another slide here in just a little bit I'll get to that'll outline this even a little more. You can see this is the property in question right here. We should be getting to that slide here in just a moment. This is just showing the location of the property again. This is what I was looking for. You'll see that the area there, you see two areas there. One's in like a pinkish color, and the other one's kind of in a lighter blue color. The area that's in the pink is the floodway. There really is no any construction permitted in the floodway. The blue area is the 100-year floodplain. That area does allow for construction. However, it does have to meet the criteria that's within our zoning resolution as adopted per FEMA, which basically requires that he has to build the structure. Its base floor elevation has to be at least 3 feet above the base flood elevation for his first floor. So that kind of gives you an idea as to why he's wanting to move the structure further up on the property. It's just to move it as far out of the floodplain as he's able to. This kind of shows you here the approximate location of his house. Again, that's not survey accurate by any means, but that just gives you a rough idea as to where he's wanting to place the structure. We did actually talked with someone this morning, or actually I guess it was this afternoon, about this particular application. I have had a couple of phone calls about this, and the one I spoke with today, actually her main concern was the fact that she wanted to make sure that we were aware that that the property is within a 100-year floodplain. And as I explained to her, I said, yes, we were aware of that, and that's the reason for this variance request. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Do we have anyone here representing this request?
My name's Spencer Sellers. I'm the owner of the property that Doug there was talking about. This property was zoned in a 100-year flood zone. When I purchased it, we were going to build on it then. Then FEMA come through in 2005, moved the waterways over, and put me in a situation where we have to ask for this variance to be able to construct anything with any size. If I would have been aware of when I come and got the permit that y'all offered even to come to the Board of Zoning Appeals and ask for a setback before I got a permit for the small, I would come up here and did the same thing, but nobody gave me that information until the building inspector come out there, and then she said, well, you can go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. They may give you some more area, which you desperately need. And I said, so that's why I went to this process here. And as you can see there, when you see the 100-year flood zone, about where you got it marked there, that waterway comes through there, and just gave me just, I can't. The purpose of doing this, I want to build a establish there for my son, and if I don't use this property up, they got me zoned for $38,500 for that piece of property. I have to pay taxes on, and I got no use out of it if I don't go this route. So that's one of the reasons I'm asking y'all to consider it, and I'll answer any questions you.
Any questions? We're pretty aware of what your situation is. You may be seated. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Joe?
Sir, have you had water over this land since you've owned the land?
Had water.
Has water been over this land since you've owned it?
When it stormed in May of last year, we probably on the back part of it, about 20 foot up, it had some in it. Now, over there where you see, in the reason I blame that, over there where you come off of Lee Road, the county has come in there and just dumped 2 loads of rock there and stopped up the drainage that goes on down to the creek. And you can see it where it's light gray right there. when they built that new Stewartsboro school, they put that in there because the bus couldn't make its full route without that in there. And they just dumped rock in there, I guess for a temporary usage, then nobody's ever come back and tended to it. That dang hole fills up 6 or 8 foot of water when it rains because it's got no way to get on down to the creek.
How many feet are you going to raise your building?
The requirements, I think it was 547.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the elevation is, but zoning requirements require that if it's in the floodplain area, that it has to be built at least 3 feet above the flood elevation in that area. So whatever that flood elevation is, you'll have to build it at least 3 feet higher than that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. All right, we'll close the public hearing. We have a motion on it.
I'll make a motion be approved.
Have a motion to be approved. Have a second. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell. Yes. Joe Machado,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes,
Motion carries, sir.
it is approved. The next item is a request by John W. Oliver, who is requesting a conditional use permit to establish a cemetery.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is for a piece of property located at 1515 Stewart Creek Road. You'll see the aerial shot on the screen before you. It's at the intersection of Burt Knob Road and Stewart Creek Road. The applicant is, as you stated, requesting to allow the establishment of a cemetery in the R15 zoning district. The proposed cemetery will act as an accessory use to a worship facility and serve as a burial place for persons who worship at the church and their immediate families. According to the applicant, the cemetery would be used as needed during the daylight hours only. The area designated as the cemetery measures about 9,800 square feet in area and is planned to accommodate a burial of about 210 persons. Now, I will say that we have received a number of phone calls and letters, faxes, emails, whatnot on this particular application. We have copied those, and you should have copies of those before you today. There's a couple of things I would like to make sure that we all understand. And the first of it, and the most important one, is the only issue that's really up before the consideration today is the cemetery itself. The establishment of a church in a residential 15 zone, which this property is zoned, is a matter of right. So that is something that they can do without having to get rezoned or any kind of a conditional use permit or anything like that. So really, what we're going to be talking about today is really just the use of the property with the cemetery. So I just want to make sure that that is clear. Again, we have received a number of calls about this particular application. There have been a lot of concerns raised. I've talked to some people regarding the drainage on the property, as well as the proposed traffic of the property, as well as some people concerned with the property values of their home, those kind of issues. And I know that most of the people here are probably here on this particular application, and you'll probably hear those concerns from them as well. Just to kind of give you just an overview, you do have a copy of the site plan, at least the concept plan, I should say, on your table before you. You had a smaller version in your agenda packet, but also we put a larger one there for your review, for your ease of review. Just to give you some of the shots of the property, this is looking straight on the property from Burt Knob Road. Again, just looking just around the area of what we have in that general area there. This is the copy of the plan. The plan you actually have before you actually shows some of the landscaping as well. I'm not sure if that's, no, that one's not in here. But some of the proposed landscaping. This is just really on the screen before you. It's pretty much the same thing, just without showing the landscaping. Again, this is not a site plan. This is just a conceptual plan, just to give you an idea of what they're looking at. The area that's outlined in red right there on the screen, I think you can see it pretty well, but right in this area is the area they're proposing for the cemetery. From its closest point to Stewart Creek Road, it's right about 100 feet, and to Burt Knob Road, it's about 150, roughly, based on the scale that I was using to measure. You can see this dark area right through here is actually their proposed parking area, what they're proposing. These are the structures that they're looking at right here, Phase 1 and Phase 2. They're both 4,000 square feet in size. So this is not just a very large church, a large congregation. I think some of the people that I've spoken with had some concerns about the size of the facility and what they were proposing. This isn't like a World Outreach or anything like that, a larger type establishment. This is fairly typical for some of the churches we see in Rutherford County. It's a smaller type congregation. But you can also see that, again, the drainage concerns are well taken. This line here identifies the floodplain through here, which you can see why most of everything is up in this area of the property as opposed to further in the back. Of course, then they've identified these areas here on the plan. These are some of their soils areas for septic tank disposal as well. So with that, of course, you had a fairly long report. I'm just giving you just a kind of a brief overview of that report. I'm available for questions. The applicant is present, and I know he can answer any questions that you may have as well.
From time to time, we have a request for cemetery sites to come before the board. As far as I know, and as far as I can determine over the years, there's no state law against burial. We have a lot of cemeteries in churchyards all over this county. We have cemeteries in people's backyards all over this county over the years. There are no state laws, there are no restrictions. There are setback restrictions, and that's about it, folks. So that's what you're facing. If you want this changed, you need to get to the people who set the laws. All we can do is follow the law in this, and that's the best we can do. Now, many of you want to speak, and that's fine. That's your right to do that. When we have a large number who would like to, we'd like for you to limit that to 3 minutes, and please stick to the subject of whether this would be an appropriate site or not, and why you would think so.
I got a question.
You have a question.
I got a question for Doug. This is in the floodplain. How many feet is that cemetery from that actual floodplain there? Very few. Maybe 10 feet?
If you just bear with me a second, I've got a larger copy. I can kind of scale it out.
If a flood gets over a grave, I think they can actually float up the casket. Am I correct? I think I am. I don't know how long since water's been over that area. It looks like maybe 5, 10 feet if it's 100 feet from a road.
It looks like the closest point, as I'm measuring it from the closest point of the proposed burial area to the flood line, assuming this is, again, this is conceptual, but assuming that this is accurate, it's about 10 feet.
Well, how many years has it been since water's been actually up at that point? Do you know?
For this particular property?
Yes, sir.
I don't have an answer to that. Sorry.
I think if water actually gets over a graveyard, I think the caskets will float up out of the ground. I don't know how high it's got to get over. Thank you.
Well, we don't know that. So to establish that idea, we probably need to let the county engineer take a look at it, the drainage. If you have a question about drainage, we need to do that. Okay, who's representing this request? If you'll come around, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Father John Oliver. I'm the parish priest for St. Elizabeth Church. When I was in seminary, I was told life of a parish priest can be quiet and free of controversy. And I see that's not exactly the case always. But St. Elizabeth Orthodox Christian Church was established in Murfreesboro in March of 2005, though our founding members have been here for much longer than that. Our current location is a leased space, an office space at 321 West McKnight Drive. It is a leased space of just under 4,000 square feet. We average about 70 members on a typical Sunday morning. Our current situation is that we have outgrown our current space. Parking has become a bit of an issue. And so We purchased 6.5 acres on this corner of Burnt Knob and Stewart Creek on February 24 of this year from Mr. Joseph and Betty Knock, who currently live in Smyrna. And our compelling motivation in searching for property was a commitment to beauty. Before anything else, a commitment to beauty and a commitment to green space. We felt that this is one of the best ways we could be a good neighbor in whatever location we have ended up. So we passed on some properties because it didn't provide a kind of pastoral or idyllic setting in which to place a very humble Orthodox Christian church, something that is built with beauty in mind. It was our desire to place a very small private cemetery adjacent to the church. A church cemetery provides stability for a congregation, a sense that commitments that were started earlier in life can be seen through to the end. And so it was our desire to place a cemetery near our church, but to do so in such a way that would contribute to the beauty of the immediate neighborhood, to do so in a way that would be pleasing to our neighbors. My family and I have gone out to this property repeatedly, and we often picnic there. And each time we have tried to get out into the neighborhoods to introduce ourselves, to let folks know kind of who St. Elizabeth Orthodox Christian Church is, that we're made up of a bunch of Murfreesboroans, and that we hope to establish a small private cemetery that would be available only to members of the church and their immediate family members. So with this in mind, we hired Huddleston Steel engineering firm to help guide us through this process because we're very new to this process. And so when we went to Huddleston Steel, we asked them to help us simply in this concept stage. They tell us that a site plan is down the road, but a conceptual plan simply tells us where we can safely put things. And so in those conversations with Mr. Huddleston, the question of drainage was obviously a significant concern. And it was a concern because if we build a beautiful church, we don't want that church threatened by floodwater any more than a local resident wants his or her house threatened by floodwater. So Mr. Huddleston explained to us that we have, with this current plan, we have minimized impervious surface so much that drainage is, in his words, negligible because we have no more than 48 parking spaces for the church. We don't have any additional parking spaces for the cemetery. The cemetery will have approximately 200 sites. We have spoken with a couple directors of funeral homes who have encouraged us to place the cemetery closer to the church, exactly where we have it. Our initial request was to try to place it farther down, away from the road. They thought that was too far into the floodplain, so their advice was to place the cemetery in this location, keep it small, keep the headstones very small, keep it all grass, and keep the impervious surface down to a minimum, and plant trees so that we preserve the green space and we preserve the idyllic setting. That has been our commitment from the beginning. And if we're able to build a cemetery here, we don't want to be able to do it just because it's our property. We want to be able to do it because it's something that can be pleasing to our neighbors. It is our desire to be a simple Christian presence and to be good neighbors and to retain the pastoral, idyllic setting of this beautiful property. Everything that you see will remain green space. So we are proceeding on the advice of Huddleston Steel and a couple of local funeral home directors. And just in closing, it has been our desire to get to know our neighbors better. This meeting actually came up kind of unexpectedly for us, so we haven't been able to meet all of our neighbors that we wish. But we hope to develop very positive relationships with our neighbors in such a way so that they ultimately feel pleased that our humble church is in their midst.
Let's see if we have some questions. Do we have any questions from the board?
The question is, why would you build a graveyard, have the graveyard approved before you build a church? What if a church falls through? You don't get money approved for it. What happens if you cannot build a church?
There have been a couple of things, positive things that have developed. One is that we've been able to purchase the property with cash. We continue to be a growing congregation. We are part of a much larger Antiochian Orthodox Christian Archdiocese of North America. And so they give us mission support from time to time. And so our desire to establish a cemetery is simply to provide a sense of stability and permanence to the congregation. I do not anticipate needing the cemetery prior to building a small worship space. But having the cemetery is something that we think is generally good for the congregation in providing that stability. So when we went to Huddleston Steel, we simply went with, this is our overall desire. Is it possible? And that's what this concept plan is. This is Huddleston Steel coming back to us and saying, yes, it's possible. Now we have to learn more about this process and continue to get a landscape survey done, which Huddleston Steel will do for us, and to do everything we can to preserve the pastoral setting of this property.
Any other questions? Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We'll open this for a public hearing for those who'd like to speak on this request, either for or against.
Good evening. My name is Mary Catherine White, and I'm a resident of Stewart Creek Farms. And before I forget, I do have a letter for the board's consideration that was drafted by my neighbor who was unable to be here today. When looking at this graph here, I live this side of Burnt Knob, towards the lower end of the graph. Stewart Creek Road, my neighbor Marcus Mister is here. He lives on Stewart Creek Road. You need me at the microphone? Sorry, I'm an attorney and I'm not held to the podium in my courtroom. I am one street over on Kingman Avenue, and I'm the third house down from Burnt Knob. That'd be great. Here's Stewart Creek Road. I am Kingman Avenue down here, and I'm the third house that is built there. So as you can see, I'm relatively close as the crow flies from this area. I did not receive notification via letter. I heard through subdivision gossip, and then I called the number from the sign and got additional information. I was very concerned from the fact that I was told all they had was the application, because I had several concerns regarding the health risk, because this area, according to my neighbors that look directly into this area, that land has flooded in the past. And without knowing more, what type of health risk a cemetery might pose to our neighborhood, that neighborhood is rather large. I'm not sure exactly of the number of homes that are there presently, but there are a number of small children that are there that we hope will grow up in that subdivision. Also here, this is another large subdivision called Stewart Springs. Then back here, there's Travis Estates that runs back through there. So this is right in the middle of a large residential area. Do you have a question, sir?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Show me with your red marker where you've known water to be over.
I believe it's been in this area here, but Mr. Mister can answer that question better than I can, as his property, in fact, his bonus room looks out right over this area. So I'll let him answer that question, sir. Also, I did have some concerns regarding drainage because any runoff that might run into any of these three subdivisions. I've not seen any type of reports regarding that. I'm not familiar with the engineering reports that the father spoke of. Also, I don't know if the board is aware, but down Burnt Knob, Right around here, there's a series of S-curves, and I know traffic has been mentioned, but this is a very narrow two-lane road that does not contain much shoulder. We do have a number of bicyclists that bicycle in good weather, and that can pose a problem just traveling back and forth from Murfreesboro. Down this way is Rogers Group. We have to deal with the rock quarry and the trucks that travel this road.
You have about 30 seconds.
Yes, sir. We already consider this to be a significant traffic problem. Also, the blasting that occurs on almost a daily basis. I'm unaware of whether or not the engineers have considered what impact the blasting would have on the cemetery plots. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Marcus Mister. I live diagonal to that barn. I sit in my family room and look upon what's to be a cemetery. Property value, all this stuff means nothing to me when my 11-year-old daughter have to be tormented by a cemetery. Please consider changing their plans. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
If you come up on Marathon Drive, there's water last year came up approximately to Marathon Drive, and this whole area right here was covered in water. That barn, if you go in that barn, I guarantee you it's mold and mildew. It's no longer a property, it's mold and mildew.
Thank you. Father, let's hear from the public first, and we'll give you a chance. If you don't mind. Sure. Thank you.
I am Nathan Burns, and I have the limited power of attorney to represent my father that owns 6944 Venetian Way. And as a real estate agent here in town, the one thing that concerns him, the main thing is that I can tell you that I've had clients that look at properties, and if we drive up and there's a cemetery nearby, they drive right on by. So that's the property value, in my opinion, is going to go down with that in mind. And you had mentioned earlier that there are cemeteries all over town, and I totally agree with that. But they were there, and then a house was built, and then the people have to choose if they want to live there at that price or not. So that's the main concern with him there. If it had been built, he wouldn't have bought that house right there. You're going to look out the back door, and you're going to see it. So that's his big concern, and rightfully so. That's really the main thing that he was wanting me to come and convey to you guys, that's important, because I have a lot of experience in property value, and I can assure you that it's going to make a difference. Other than that, if there's not any questions, I want to thank you guys for your time and your consideration.
I just got one question, Mr. Chairman, and this gentleman says he is a real estate agent. And I know we addressed this time and time again, and it's, everything, I guess everybody, when we look at all applications, we do every application based on its own merit, and we try to make the best decision we can based on the facts that we have. And with this application, and I know the lady that spoke earlier alluded to it, and I know you have too, by saying that you all property values would be affected by if this was approved. But and we get that all the time, but no one ever comes with something, some type of legal document, something drafted by a professional residential specialist or anything that alludes to saying that this proves that this does have that detrimental effect on your property value. So, I know you say that, and I'm sure some of the other ones are going to allude to that. But when we're trying to make our decisions and trying to approve applications, when they say that, it would be most helpful, other than just saying that, to have some type of proof. That's just a comment I have.
Well, that's why he had me here. I'm actually a productive realtor here in town, and that is a difference if you look.
You have about 15 seconds.
Okay, and that's why I'm here to tell you that, in my professional opinion, that it is going to hurt property value for those two neighborhoods, Stewart Springs and Stewart Creek Farms.
Thank you. what the board would like for all of you to remember this, we would like this to be a certified assessment of the area out there, so you might want to keep that in mind. Just because you're a real estate agent and say that this is true doesn't mean that it's going to be true, but try to get us a certified assessment. You know what I'm talking about.
Earl Harris, 1228 Marathon. My house would probably sit where it sits now. I would be looking out my back door at the graveyard. I do not want this to happen. I oppose it for that reason, and I'll get into that in a minute. And also, I oppose it because it is going to bring more water into that branch that runs or crosses across Marathon. The church, the parking places, the additional roads is going to run more water down on into that branch, and we can't stand that now. We've got the two houses down below me this time and last year also have had to replace ductwork, and I'm afraid that if it continues, it's going to do that then. Also, on the my parents are buried in a cemetery right now where the church owned it, sold it, and then it's been sold 3 times since then. Now there's no money to keep it up. And so what's going to happen here? I'm not suggesting that might happen, but that's something that needs to be thought of. If it's just walked off and left after a cemetery or several years of burying people there, and the flowers and everything, the mowing that it takes, what's going to happen if somebody just walks off and leaves it? Who takes care of it then? Thank you. Sure.
How many years have you lived out there?
6.
6 years. Have you seen water over this land before?
Yes, 2 times.
2 times in 6 years. Pretty well cover that lot?
Last year and this year.
How much does it cover that lot? Water. Could you take a little red marker he has there and show me? It's laying on the... where you've seen water. On that yellowed in area. In the yellowed area is where I'm concerned about. You've seen water all over that. Come on over to the right. How far in there?
The water will probably... Sir, if you could step back to the microphone and just point, please. Thank you.
The water would be somewhere right along in here. It's hard for me to visualize exactly.
You've seen that 2 times in the last 6 years?
Yes.
So in 100 years, it can cover the whole lot many times.
Well, I'm not saying that.
If you've seen water over that much area in 6 years, it's possible that the water gets over a lot.
My house is the 3rd house from the bridge on Marathon, and I had a river between my house and the next door house. It came down where it's supposed to go in the creek. The creek couldn't stand it, and so it turned in between our houses and started going down Marathon Drive, of which it just backed up. So that's the reason we're sort of concerned about any additional drainage into that area, because that creek can't take it.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I have a question for Mr. Mossy that this gentleman brought up. And I don't know if it's something that we would deal with or not. But I think it's a good, legitimate question. If we approve this site for this cemetery, and the question he had was later on that somebody or something happened and this cemetery be abandoned or whatever, and he had some concerns about that. Is there some way, or is this something we would deal with as far as putting something in for an escrow or something that would take care of this cemetery from time to time, later on?
Mr. Bratcher, I guess something like that would be possible. before we just arbitrarily did something like that, staff would like a chance to kind of research that a little bit. I mean, I've heard of escrow accounts for roads and drainage things and those kind of structures before, not necessarily for something like this. And I understand the gentleman's concern too. If something were to happen down the road and the cemetery or the church property sold, who maintains the cemetery? I also know that there are property maintenance standards, and Ms. Criswell can probably speak more to that than better than that than I can. But my understanding is, whoever owns the property at that time is held responsible for the maintenance of the property. If it's not done, and again, Ms. Criswell, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the county can do the work and then possibly place a lien on the property if that is the case. Is that accurate?
Doug, that's only for recorded subdivisions.
Recorded subdivisions, okay. Forgive me.
And I don't want to beat it to death, but I guess I've kind of known around, you see some older cemeteries, sometimes winds up maybe being a family member of someone that's buried in there that kind of winds up taking care of the grass or this, that, and other. I'm not saying that's going to be this scenario here. I guess it's kind of a concern. If I didn't know if it was something, but you may think that we may need to add into something if we did approve this that would maybe.
Yeah, and I guess my concerns at that point, again, needing to research it, but just the things that are kind of coming to my mind right now are, how much is in the account, in the event that did happen. I mean, eventually the money will run out at some point. So then, how do you have a situation where you've got a routine for maintenance? Those are just some questions I can think of, but, sir.
All right, so thank you.
Go ahead, please.
I'm Keith Bellenfant. I live at 1224 Marathon Drive in the Stewart's Springs subdivision. Just like to voice some concerns that have previously been voiced. The flooding issue is a major concern with us. I've lived in the subdivision for 6 years. I was one of the first homes built there. I haven't specifically paid attention to that area of plot that we're focusing on here, but if you'll show me the pointer, I will tell you what. I can tell you that what I have paid attention to is the Stewart's Creek subdivision would sit right over in here. My house is right here, okay? I have seen water come over this road within the last 2 to 3 years, and what happens is this fills up here, this pond overflows, and last year in May we had the bad flood. These 2 homes were flooded. They had to replace ductwork. Last weekend they were flooded. They're replacing sump pumps this week. If you add any more water on this area right here, it's going to really create some problems for our subdivision. And I know there have been various opinions that have told us it's the residents, it's your responsibility. But the residents, I don't think, we just don't have a whole lot of voicing approving these projects, because these projects and the construction and the proper drainage is what is bringing this additional water. I know Stewart's Creek has a small pond over here, but a lot of this drainage water is what gets filtered into our system over here, and it ends up down in here where we're causing some problems. Property values is another concern with the cemetery. And then, what happens if the cemetery fills? What goes there? Are we going to try to buy this property right here? So there's obviously some concerns there. Obviously, you have a lot of respect for the Christians who are trying to build their. I'm a Christian myself. I can respect that. My personal opinion is, you've got 300 or 400 really nice homes in this neighborhood. I'm not sure that a cemetery in this area is just It's a good idea. So those are my thoughts, and I think those are the thoughts of a lot of other people who couldn't be here tonight. And thank you for allowing me to get up here and speak.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Diana Barton. I live at 1203 Marathon Drive.
My home is right across from the home that's on the bottom here on the left. And I will just verify that it has flooded. There's a retention pond here at the corner, and it does flood over across the road. Now, how far into the field it goes, I don't know. I don't go down there and look, but it does flood. And I understand that the law is the law, and if you decide to approve that, it would be probably a good faith effort maybe if the church is actually built before the cemetery is approved, as far as I'm concerned, just to know that they actually are going to build something there and not just stick a cemetery there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rochelle Womble, and I live at 6955 Venetian Way. And actually, my house, if I come out my front door, if the cemetery's there, that's exactly what I will see because of the place of my house on 6955 Venetian Way. What my concerns are have already been echoed is the property value. My husband and I have actually lived there about 2.5 years, so we're fairly new. If we could have foreseen the future and knew that a cemetery was going to be there, we probably would not have made the purchase. And this, you know, the homes in our subdivision are really, really nice. I chose it because of the location, because of it's just a nice subdivision. And so I do feel like the cemetery would impact the property value of my home, the resale value. No, I don't have anything in writing to validate my concern, but I just know as a individual, if I went out looking to purchase another home, I would not purchase a home with a cemetery, and I do have the utmost respect for the dead and understand the necessity of a cemetery, but I just don't think it would be a good fit. And lastly, the traffic. I'm actually home every day because I work from home, and the traffic is ridiculous with the rock quarry and the trucks that are coming back and forth, and I think that would just make it worse as far as the traffic. And then the roads are narrow, so you have to deal with the trucks plus the additional traffic. And that's all I have, and thank you for allowing me to speak before you.
Can you repeat your last name for me?
I probably need to spell it.
Okay.
W-O-M-B-L-E.
Next.
My name's Woody Bowen. I live in Smyrna. I live at 107 Avondale Drive. I'm currently neighbors with the Knox, the folks that sold this land. My parents, as well as the Knox, bought this back in the late 60s. I owned the property to the left-hand side, to my parents over here. That has been perked for some building sites. I had goals of building a home there at some point in my life. I haven't done that yet, and due to economics probably won't be, and particularly now. For quite some time, the developers of the subdivision wanted to buy our property. We refused to sell it to them at that point. We're planning on having like an estate lot here with a home toward the front of the property, use the rest for pasture land. That was what this was originally bought for, was horse pasture. We cut hay off of it on both sides. I was kind of shocked when I found out in March the Knox had sold their part for much lower than the current market value, I felt like. But they were in their 80s, decided to sell it, didn't offer it to us. We'd have probably bought it if we could have and had the whole area. I'm still kind of going under the shock of the whole idea of the church coming there. I'm behind that 100%. The cemetery, I found out last week. I'm here just to speak up about it. I have seen flooding in the pond, as we talked about. If I was going to build on my side, I'd probably do it less than a third back from the main Burnt Knob Road area to be on the safe side. That whole back area where the creek is has flooded over the last, I've been involved with this since the late 60s, so I've seen this quite a bit flooded over the years. I think it's gotten worse since the subdivisions have come in as well. It looks like to me the only hope I'm going to have as far as retaining any semblance of property value is if at some point in time the church is successful, it grows to the point that my daughter's 3, maybe she can sell it when she's grown if the cemetery needs to come over to our property. Otherwise, I feel like this has basically ruined the value of my land on this side here. So that's my point.
Thank you.
I'm Ted Sherman. I live at 122 Carroll Drive. I'm a parishioner of St. Elizabeth's. When we first looked at this property, when we first looked at this property, it was actually several years ago, and then it came back up this year when Mr. Knock offered it to us. In speaking with Mr. Knock, he informed us that, to his knowledge, the flooding in the past had only come up to the back side of this barn, not this addition to the barn, it's falling down, but to this backside and essentially up in this area. Now, where we're talking about not only building the church, which isn't part of this agenda, but the church and the fellowship area and the parking will be over here. We're talking about building the cemetery or putting the cemetery in this area. Now, what this diagram doesn't show you very well is this fence line here, which you can see some of the fences. It's the plan of the church to have a landscape plan that will essentially, except for the entrance, encircle the property with trees. Encircle. Okay? So neighbors living here or here or here or here, unless their window looks directly out on the entrance to the church, the entrance to the drive, they will be shielded by trees. And this is part of what Father John was talking about with the beauty of the site, the green space. We want to increase the green space. You know, in terms of all of this area back here, we won't do any building on it. All these trees will remain. These trees will remain. These trees will remain. So when talking about building a cemetery, the cemetery obviously is low to the ground. It's hard to see. Even if you didn't put trees around here, but a 9-foot hedge, that's going to completely block the view from everybody. The only people who will see that cemetery will the people who come in to pay respect to the dead. Okay? Notice also this is the tree line over here. It's a fairly significant one. This is a 5-acre lot that the previous speaker was talking about that borders, that buffers this view from this side. That's all I'd like to say.
You've got about 15 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, you go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Eddie Bernard. I live at 7002 Venetian Way. I'm the guy he's talking about because my screened-in porch looks right out on where they're planning on putting the cemetery. You will see that from back of my house. Also, what they haven't mentioned, right next door to my house is a drainage. It's a lot and a half. It's designed to catch the water from the entire subdivision, and it drains right directly where they're planning on putting that cemetery. I'm not here to talk about the church. I'm not here to talk about the traffic. We're here to talk about the cemetery. I'm somewhat, being a prosecutor in Marshall County, although I live in Rutherford County, familiar with the cemetery laws. And what I'm concerned about, and I was living there last year when the flood happened. And I'm telling you, the water gets deeper on that property than you've been told. Also, the Stewart Creek subdivision drains on that property. That property stays wet when it's raining. And last May, a lot of that area was underwater. Now, cemeteries, public cemeteries, privately owned for-profit cemeteries, they have restrictions. In Tennessee, you don't have to be embalmed. You don't have to have a vault in a church cemetery. You can be put in the ground in a disposable casket. And that is creating problems for bacteria and things like that in the neighborhood. Yes, I'm concerned about having to look at a cemetery. No, I wouldn't have bought the house. The reason probably, sir, you don't get these written documents that you want is because we don't get enough notice to get somebody to come and look at the property values, and I'll gladly get you one. But what I'm asking for is y'all have had a lot of questions and they've been good ones, is a delay on this. They're talking about building this church a year from now. Why have an approval for a cemetery today? Because what happens with, trust me, I'm from the government type thing. The churches get a tax break, and that's fine. They probably should have them. But then they build the cemetery. They fold up. I know what we do in Marshall County. We send prisoners out on these church cemeteries that have folded up. And I don't want prisoners in the neighborhood. Delay this. He hasn't been to my house to have a meeting with me. And let's see if everybody can get together and stop lawsuits and other things that could possibly happen on this. Thank you.
Sir, I got a question for you. Show
Yes.
me with that red pointer where you've seen water.
Is this the red pointer?
Yes, sir.
Need
you to stay at the microphone and point, sir.
All right. The water last year was past this barn, and it came up about through here. The drainage is right here, and it comes across down this way. And I'm talking about a lot of water.
Did you say you were a lawyer?
I'm a prosecutor. I hate to admit that I'm a lawyer, but you have to be a prosecutor.
And you lived there how long?
3 years.
And you've seen water over it how many times in 3 years?
In 3 years, last year when we had the flood, I've seen it substantially wet, but as far as being underwater last year.
Thank you a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ann Brannon. I live at 1004 Dayclear Drive in Stewart Creek Farms. And just to follow up on some of the things that some people brought up today and some concerns that we have, I'm not familiar with what the Tennessee laws are on burial.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Yes, sorry, sir. Another concern that we have is that you brought up some things about people's concern with property values, and we just saw this sign pop up last week, so it's really only been there for about a week. I don't feel that there's been enough time for those of us in the community to do the research to that some of you are claiming that you need at this time. I think that we need more time to look into some of that, especially on the property values. One thing that I did have a question, I don't know if you guys could answer this, was when was the last time that FEMA evaluated this property to determine if the floodplain has changed at all? And if this was approved and they changed the floodplain laws, would we have to start all over again, or how would they have to change that? Another concern I had, some of our neighbors brought that up, was on the tombstones. What is the tombstone size? I don't know if that's something that is up to the parish to decide. That's a concern I have. Are they all going to be even with the ground? You know, I think the father said they would not be large, but what's not large to him may be very large to someone else. Finally, the gentleman that spoke and said that there would be landscaping. Would there not be any signs that say this is where the cemetery is? I mean, I would think that there would be something to kind of point out the fact that there is a cemetery there. So, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I just got a question for Doug. Something she brought up, and one or two others have brought up, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just got a question. When we have a application, or whatever, to come before the BZA, and I know we got a deadline because of when we take them, because we got to do advertisement and whatever. But how often? I mean, when we go put a sign out to saying that this has been proposed for a board of zoning, how long is that sign out there so that?
Generally, a week and a half to 2 weeks prior to the meeting.
Sir?
Generally, a week and a half to 2 weeks prior to the
Week
meeting.
and a half, 2 weeks, okay.
That's generally the time frame, along with the letters we send out, and then which we send out to property owners within 500 feet, based on the most up-to-date information we have available to us, and then also the legal notice we place in the Murfreesboro Post as well.
Right. I guess I don't hash that out here, but I think that I don't know, you all can maybe look at that, and the reason I say that, because the gentleman I guess he did have a legitimate concern. If I found something, I mean, I could be maybe even out of town for a week and see that, or, you know, I just maybe have some concerns about, maybe if that's long enough, if somebody did have a concern about a property, and then being able to go and get someone, whether it be an engineer or whatever the case may be, and then having time to get that back to them before they would have time to come here. So, I don't know. I don't have to hash that now, but that may be something we want to look at.
Yeah, I mean,
to
public
give more notice to the
notification
public.
is something it's obviously very important to us. It's also, it can be very frustrating at the same time.
Yes, sir.
You know, we put the signs out. Of course, we have, like you said, we have deadlines,
Absolutely.
application deadlines. We have reports to write, and then get that the signs and the notifications in the paper and everything. It's always, it seems like no matter what we do, there's always going to be someone that probably didn't see the sign, didn't get a notice, didn't see the ad in the paper. I mean, it's a losing battle from our standpoint. We try to do as much as we can. You know, put our agendas on the website as well. I don't know if a lot of people know that or realize that or not, but if they go to our websites, they can get our copies of our agendas. They can always call our office for that. We try to do as much as we can to
We
that.
have this young lady standing up here. She's already nervous, so let's get her.
Okay.
My name's Kristen Kaufman. I live at 7023 Citation Lane, which is inside the Stewart Creek Farms neighborhood. I also did not receive a letter, and my husband and I were out of town this past week on vacation, and so we just came home to see the sign and heard the neighborhood gossip. So we have not had much time at all. One thing I did want to point out, though, if I can use this pointer here, this is the main entrance here to the neighborhood of Stewart Creek Farms. Right here. So I wanted to just to clarify that, to point out that it's not just a few homes here and maybe a few homes here that will have, a visible site to this. It is the very main entrance to the neighborhood. So my concern, again, just to echo others, is the property value. Although we haven't had time to bring you anything formal, I think we'd all be hard-pressed to find someone who would want to live, right next to a cemetery. So that's my concern. And then also, I know the gentleman mentioned about the trees and they would try to cover as much as possible, but once it's approved, my concern is that we wouldn't have any control or say over what beautification was done and how much, how visible the cemetery would be. So my request would be that if you all do approve this tonight, that there be some kind of requirement that the cemetery would be beautified, that it would not be visible to people driving by on the streets, whether it be some kind of gate or fence or something to kind of hide the actual cemetery from view. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Kaufman. I also live at 7023 Citation. I'm in Stewart Creek Farms. As my wife pointed out, that is the main entrance to our housing development. Currently in Stewart Creek Farms, we have in the neighborhood of 85 houses. There are 2 more sections that are planned for our neighborhood. A total of 450 houses will be put in there. People have mentioned about the water tables and the drains and the runoff. I'd like to point out that this right here is a retention pond for our neighborhood. Just the front section. This also right here is a drainage pond, retention pond for our neighborhood. As somebody said, this one does, whenever it overflows, it'll drain across the street into this field. This one as well overflows and goes down the street. My other concern that we have is that I think it's been understated really is the Rogers Group is located about 3/4 of a mile down the road in this direction from the site here. Now, the normal traffic on a Sunday, of course, you won't have that interfering with the rock quarry. However, if you consider a funeral procession of several cars, and I have been in several funeral processions where there's been about 100 vehicles. The gentleman from the church mentioned that they plan to have about 45 parking spots for their church. He also mentioned that they have around 70 active members in their church on regular attendance. There is no berm on the side of that road. It's a drop-off. There's no place for those cars to park. That's my concern.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that has not had a chance to speak on this? Okay, Father.
I want to thank you very much for the concerns that have been raised. There are things that we need to be able to be aware of and to satisfy in such a way that again, will be an affirmation to the community where we hope to be established. Something simply to remember is that this is not a cemetery with a church. This is a church with a cemetery. And By the way, according to a 1996 edition of the Journal of Real Estate Finance and Economics, over 5,000 residential neighborhoods were surveyed. The presence of a church increases property value substantially. So no one cares about the moisture on a property more than its owners. And so before we even considered 1515 Stewart Creek Road, we did our due diligence to find out, when does it get wet, why does it get wet, when it does get wet, where does it get wet. Mr. and Mrs. Knock, the previous owners who had the property since 1974, explained that at no time had the water ever crested above the barn. Since we have been interested in this property, which has been about 6 months now, after every significant rainfall, I personally go out. I've had some parishioners go out, simply because we don't want to put a beautiful church in an area that's going to suffer flooding. So at no time has any moisture crested above a small area here under the barn and along the tree, the cluster of cedars in the back, since we have been watching this property. And no one cares more about any kind of flood damage than the owners of the property. So if we're proceeding, please understand that we are proceeding according to the Council of Engineers, Huddleston Steel, as well as funeral homes. So our desire is, of course, to establish the church around this location and then have that small church cemetery with very strict policies that we hope could be done in cooperation with the community about headstones. There are no mausoleums, there are no outbuildings, there is no digging equipment that we would have. These would simply be ground level gravestones, again, according to policies adopted that we hope we could be done in cooperation with the Homeowners Association.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Father, can you tell me where the proposed, I guess there's about 200 sites, cemetery lots. Can you tell me approximately length and width of area that would consume?
Yes, sir. The average burial site is 10 feet long by 4 feet wide.
But I'm talking about the whole area.
The whole area would be roughly 800 square feet, 800 by 200 feet. Okay. 800 feet long by 200 feet wide.
All right, sir, thank you.
Right, right. Not quite that big, according to Mr. DeMasi.
I'm doing a measurement right now based on the concept plan we have. It looks like the area, again, just going from outer edge to outer edge, looks like it measures about 60 feet by about 140-ish.
And according to standard church cemetery procedures, we would have a burial there probably approximately once every 3 to 4 years.
Thank you.
Yes, okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else who has not had a chance to speak on this? Okay, we'll close the public hearing.
I got a question for Doug. Doug, I know I've seen on the news and they've changed a lot of the floodways. Can you tell me if this is a recent floodway map, or how can we find out if it's been changed, if it hadn't, or if you got anything you can add to that?
The information on the concept plan shows this map being dated January 5th of 2007, which is pretty much the date of the majority of the flood maps we have. We do have a couple panels that are dated October of 2008, but that's just a very small handful. Flood maps and flood determinations, these FEMA floodways, of course, are determined by FEMA and the Corps of Engineers. They don't necessarily have a set schedule as to when they come back and redo these every, there's not necessarily a set schedule. They come back every 5 years, every 6 years, whatever. I have heard some information that they are probably going to do a re-review over the next couple of years, but at this point, this is what's binding. And this is what we currently, we're required by FEMA to have regulations based on their model ordinances to have the requirements for flood development in our zoning resolution, which it is, and also it references these dates of these particular maps. So,
I'd like for us to proceed in a logical manner on this, if you don't mind. Let's put a motion on the floor with a second, then we'll go to a discussion on it. So either up or down.
Sir, I'm ready to make a motion.
Pardon me?
I'm ready to make a motion if you're ready for it.
Joe.
I think if the church was already established out there, some churches are built and succeed and some built and don't. On 231 Highway, I know there's a new one built in the last.
Then we'll discuss.
Okay. I'll make a motion to deny this request.
Make a motion
On the grounds of on the grounds of the water. It's so close to the flood water. It's within 10 or 20 feet from a flood zone. And no one can be that close to estimating what the water will come up next year to. Okay. And I think the church itself would be making a mistake to bury anybody in this area not knowing where the water is going to be. So I'll make a motion to deny the request on the ground of this water situation.
Okay, we have a motion that be denied. Do we have a second? Dies because you don't have a second. Do you have a second?
No, I'd like to make another motion. What I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, there seems to be some concerns about the water issues and some other issues. And at the same time, I think everybody wants to maybe try to resolve this thing, maybe even come back with some more information. What I'd like to do is I'd like to make a motion that we delay this for 1 month.
Okay.
And give some other residents out there to, if they want to come with some other proof of something, and at the same time.
All right, we have a motion that this be delayed. Do we have a second? We have
I'll
a second
second
to that. Now, also, let me state, Father, I'm not sure where you are in planning out there. Number one, I think you need to have a community meeting with the folks out there before we proceed with this anywhere. I don't think we're ready. I don't think this board is ready. I don't think the community is ready. I don't think that your church membership is ready for this either. Secondly, I'd like for the county engineer, if someone take this down, I'd like for the county engineer to review the drainage and possibility of flooding of any cemetery that is proposed at that site. You can remember the times in this county, for those of you who have been here a long time, that we have had with this 100-year flood and 1,000-year flood, that we've had some of our cemeteries, and one of them was out here at Stones River Battlefield, that was flooded. I mean, this was terrible. It was terrible for the county, and the public relations to it was also terrible. We don't want to get into that situation again. So I want to be assured that we do not, by our engineers, and we can check with Huddleston Steel and our own county engineer to verify that one way or the other. And Father, another thing I have a problem with this is that you do not have a church out there yet. I just think you're getting the horse before the cart. I would prefer to see, and I know this is just my opinion, okay? And I don't have any bearing on this one way or the other. I don't make the motions. But just my thinking on it, I really think your group out there needs to have an established church, a building on site where you're having services, and then look at the other things that you want to have. I just think you're a little too soon on it, and that's all right. We can't respond to it. I'm just giving you, since we have a motion on the floor and we have a second, we can give you some of our opinions. It's just our opinions. So you got three things that I would certainly, we will bring this back, but before we do that, these things I think need to be met. So we have a motion and we have a second, and I'm open for any other discussion of board members on this. That's what it's for. Joe?
I am really concerned about the water. And, Doug, I don't know who has to do this, but I think, if we can get TEMA involved at looking at, if they're going to change the floodway or whatever, Because of course I don't know either. I mean, maybe you can build a cemetery in a floodway. I'm not sure. So maybe, we need to have more information available to us about things like that.
It would certainly be embarrassing to all of us if we had a cemetery that held water and flooded. It would be very embarrassing. Yeah, and we don't want to get into that. So those are the things we really need to verify. And also, let me say this to all of you all who live out there. Please either call or send your address in to the office up here so we can make sure that we notify you before we have any more meetings. I can't think of anything worse than you not being able to know that we're going to have a meeting up here. And we'll try to get letters out to you if we have your addresses. We don't always have that. So please let us know that. Now, we have a motion and we have a second, and this would be a delay. In this, number one, we'd like for them to have a meeting with the neighborhood out there and to go over all their plans. Secondly, I'm really concerned about a church not being on property. There's not really a congregation there. And third, the county engineer to be involved in this and give us more information. Is there anything else?
One other thing, this would also give some folks a chance to come in with some written appraisals or whatever to show us that, they say that the property value is going to go down, but if they could show us something in proof, then that would be great.
Okay.
Just one other thing I guess I'd like to add. Mr. Chairman, I made the motion to delay it. I'm just wondering if if we think 30 days is going to be enough time to give.
I don't think 30 days is going to give us enough time for this.
You are allowed, no, okay, now the zoning, I was looking at this a little earlier. The zoning resolution allows you to delay action, stay action, whatever you want to call it, defer it for up to 60 days. Now, if the applicant requests as well, it can be longer than that. But as a board, you have the authority to go up to 60 days.
Okay. Well, to being, I guess, fair to all sides, and, not a way, 30 days is 30 days, but I guess to give all sides, and I'm not trying to put anything off any longer, but I want to make sure everybody has ample time, as well as our office, as well as the residents, and well as the church. So I guess I would have to check with a second, but I would like to, I'd like to change my motion and allow up to 60 days.
60 days, okay.
And that way we'll make sure we give everybody ample time
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, that it be delayed for 60 days. Any other discussion?
Was the person who seconded that okay with that? I didn't notice one way or the other. The person, he changed his motion.
Oh, do you want to agree with that?
Yes, I agree with it.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that,
Okay,
the
okay.
60 days, yes.
Thank you.
As the maker of the motion, are you including the recommendations that the chairman made, or just what you recommended?
You talking about all the recommendations that he made? Yes.
Call roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machoto,
Yes?
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. Father,
Motion
did you
carries.
have something else you wanted?
Okay, come on.
I'm sorry, very briefly, just for clarity, are we able to withdraw the request if
Sure.
we would like to take more time
You can, yeah,
to
and
meet
let
with
me-
neighbors and things like that?
Yes, you can. And let me just
Okay.
expound on that just a little bit. You have the ability to do that, yes, sir. Now,
Okay.
if you do that, you have to wait 9 months before you apply again for
Okay.
the same thing. So
Okay.
if you decided to defer or withdraw your application today, you'd
Right.
be 9 months from today before you could apply again for the cemetery portion. Again, the
Okay.
church building,
Yeah.
again, if you were to submit a site plan, that's a by right situation. So that can
Sure.
be, that still can be done. That wouldn't hold you
Okay.
up there at all.
Okay. It just seems to me the more time, the better, to address as many concerns as we can. And again, I just want to emphasize, we have simply been proceeding according to what we've been counseled by the engineering firm, so we're not intentionally trying to put a cart before a horse or a horse before a cart. But we may end up withdrawing the application so that we can address as many.
Would you please check with him about?
Yes.
And you might want to sit down with him and get more information about
Sure,
how to proceed.
sure. These are all legitimate concerns, and I'm very grateful
Okay,
that they've been addressed.
Thank you so much. Did we call a roll? We did. And what did you announce?
To defer.
Okay. It is approved. Deferral is approved. Thank you so much, everyone. We have one other item that we need to take up. This is a request. I'm sorry, lost my agenda. This is a request by Holly Grove Baptist Church, who is, they're asking for a variance relief on the requirement of a fire hydrant.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The final request that we'll be considering today, as you stated, is for Holly Grove Baptist Church, located along Holly Grove Road. They are requesting a variance from relief from the development regulation requiring a fire hydrant to be located within 1,000 feet of the proposed development. This is the location of the building. Actually, the church is in existence, and what they're proposing to do is make a 3,000 square foot addition to the building. Again, it's a situation where, you know, it's a new development. We have a new site plan. The site plan has to meet the requirements of our zoning resolution. There has not been fire protection out in this area for quite some time, and with the existing church. So essentially what they are asking for is just a variance relief from that. I don't recall getting any phone calls about this particular application, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do you all have any questions at all on this?
I have a question. Will the water company provide water for a hydrant? It's my understanding that there's just not enough volume or pressure to support the hydrant, is my understanding. They got a letter here. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We'll open this for a public hearing. Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion on it?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Can I get that second again, please? Who was it? Joe Schmidt. Thank you.
I did.
You didn't want to get up here anyway, did you?
Okay. Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machado,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Dane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
We are adjourned.